Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today we're tackling a text that's considered pretty important by, well, a lot of people.
That's right. We're looking at the Quran.
Yeah, the Quran. So
Right.
we're not going to try to cover everything. I mean, it's a big book.
It is.
But what we're going to do is we're going to unpack some of the core messages and the big ideas. So if you're interested in figuring out what the Quran is all about, stick with us.
Absolutely. And we're going to be using this source here, the Quran, guidance for humanity, to help us along the way.
Perfect. So the Quran is believed by Muslims to be the word of Allah, right?
Yes. Revealed to the Prophet Muhammad.
Okay, and that makes it a pretty big deal for like millions and millions of people around the world.
Definitely. For Muslims, it's the ultimate source of guidance for, well, pretty much everything. How to live their lives, how to understand the world around them, how to connect with the divine.
So it's like a roadmap.
That's a great way to put it. It's a roadmap for a meaningful life.
Okay, I like that. A roadmap. So where does this roadmap begin? What are some of the foundational beliefs that the Quran is built on?
Well, I'd say the most fundamental concept is tawheed,
Tawheed.
which is the belief in the oneness of God.
Okay, so Allah being the one and only God.
Exactly. But it goes deeper than just saying, okay, there's one God. It's about recognizing that Allah is the sole creator and sustainer of everything that exists, and that he's the ultimate power in the universe.
So it's not just believing that God exists, it's about understanding that God is like connected to everything.
Yes. And that connection, that awareness of Allah's presence in every aspect of life is what shapes a Muslim's worldview.
Wow, okay. So Tawheed is this foundational belief, right? It's like the base of everything. And then building on that is the idea of risalah.
Yes, risalah, which is the belief in prophethood.
Okay, so this is about like the messengers, the prophets that Allah sent to guide humanity.
Exactly. And in Islam, Muhammad is believed to be the final prophet. He brought the final revelation, the Quran, to complete the message that had been revealed to prophets before him, like Abraham, Moses, and Jesus.
So it's like a continuation of like a message that's been unfolding over time.
Right. And this message, the Quran, is meant for all of humanity, not just one specific group of people or one time period.
So it's a universal message.
Yes, a universal message that guides humanity towards the ultimate destination, which is akhirah.
Akhirah. Okay, and that's the day of judgment.
Exactly. The belief that there's a life after death and that we will be held accountable for our actions in this life. So, yeah, pretty significant.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's got to have a big impact on how you live your life, knowing that everything you do matters, not just in the here and now, but in the forever after.
Absolutely. It brings a whole new level of meaning to every decision, every action.
Right, because you're not just living for this moment, you're living for something much bigger. So, would it be safe to say that this awareness, this belief in akhirah, shapes the moral and ethical framework that the Quran outlines?
Definitely. It's at the heart of it. The Quran emphasizes living a life that's pleasing to Allah. And that involves being compassionate, just, and upholding certain values in your daily life.
So what kind of values are we talking about here?
Well, compassion is huge, especially towards those who are more vulnerable in society, like caring for orphans, helping the poor, looking after travelers, anyone in need.
So it's about taking care of each other.
Exactly. It's not just about individual piety. It's about building a just and equitable society where everyone is looked after.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like, it's not enough to just be a good person yourself. You have to actually contribute to creating a good world for everyone.
That's a great way to put it.
And something else that really stood out to me is that emphasis on honesty, kindness, patience, justice, these are pretty big values that are highlighted over and over again in the Quran.
You're absolutely right. And all of these values, they all point to a deeper principle, which is taqwa.
Taqwa. Okay, break that down for me. What does that mean?
So taqwa is often translated as God consciousness, but it's more than just being aware of God. It's about living your life in a way that aligns with his will.
So it's like having this awareness of God guiding your actions.
Exactly. Like an internal compass. It's about trying to do what's right, even when no one's watching, even when it's difficult.
Okay, yeah. That's a powerful concept. So it's not just about blindly following rules. It's about developing this deep sense of what's right and letting that guide your choices.
Exactly.
So it's about internalizing those values and letting them shape who you are. I like that.
It's a lifelong journey.
Right. It's not a destination, it's a journey. And speaking of journeys, the Quran isn't all just abstract concepts and values, right? There are also stories.
Oh, yes, tons of stories.
Yeah, like the stories of the prophets.
Absolutely. Stories of Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, they're all woven throughout the text.
Wow. So why are those stories important? What do they add?
Well, they're not just there for historical value. They're meant to teach us lessons, to provide moral guidance, to show us the consequences of our choices.
So it's like learning through example.
Exactly. Seeing how the prophets dealt with challenges, how they remained steadfast in their faith, how they interacted with God and with other people.
It's like those stories make those abstract ideas, like taqwa and compassion, more concrete and relatable.
That's a good way to think about it. They
Yeah.
bring those concepts to life and help us understand what they might look like in our own lives.
I like that. Are there any stories that really stand out to you, like one that you find yourself going back to?
There are so many. But one that always resonates with me is the story of Prophet Joseph. Have you heard that one?
I have. It's a pretty powerful story.
It is. He went through so much: betrayal by his own brothers, being sold into slavery, false accusations, imprisonment. But even through all that hardship, he never lost his faith. And in the end, not only did he rise to a position of power, but he also chose to forgive his brothers.
Yeah, he didn't just survive, he thrived. And he chose forgiveness over revenge.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, we can find strength in our faith, and that forgiveness is always possible. Always.
That is such a great message. And it seems to tie in with another big theme that runs through the Quran, right? The emphasis on seeking knowledge and reflecting on creation.
Absolutely. The Quran is full of verses that encourage us to think critically, to observe the world around us, to ponder the wonders of creation. It's not about blindly accepting things.
It's about like active engagement with the world and with your own faith.
Exactly. Seeking knowledge, reflecting, questioning, it's all part of the journey.
And it's interesting, right? Because this emphasis on knowledge is what led to that, like flourishing of science and scholarship in the Islamic Golden Age.
Right. Thinkers, scientists, philosophers, they were all inspired by the Quran's call to seek knowledge.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Tawheed, risalah, akhirah, taqwa, the stories of the prophets, the importance of knowledge. Is there anything else that you think is crucial for understanding the core message of the Quran?
Well, I think it's important to address a topic that often gets misunderstood, and that's jihad.
Yeah, jihad. That's a word that, like, gets thrown around a lot in the media and is often associated with violence and extremism.
Exactly. And that's a very narrow and frankly inaccurate portrayal of what jihad really means.
So what does it actually mean?
The root of the word jihad means to strive or struggle. And in an Islamic context, it refers to the striving in the path of righteousness.
Okay, so it's about effort and struggle, but not necessarily like physical fighting.
Right. There are different kinds of jihad. Yes, there are situations where armed defense is necessary to protect oneself or one's community, but that's only one aspect of jihad.
So it's a much broader concept.
Much broader. It also includes the struggle against injustice, the struggle to overcome your own flaws, the struggle to be a better person.
So it's about constantly striving to improve yourself and the world around you.
Exactly. It can be internal, like fighting against laziness or negative thoughts, or external, like speaking out against oppression or working to improve your community.
Okay, that's a very different understanding of jihad than what we often hear. It's about like personal growth and positive action.
Precisely.
And it all circles back to that idea of living a life that's pleasing to Allah.
Yeah.
So all of this, the values, the stories, the striving, it's all connected to that.
Right.
So is it fair to say that the Quran's teachings are ultimately about guiding humanity towards a life of purpose and meaning, both in this world and the next?
That's a great way to sum it up. It's about understanding our place in creation, connecting with the divine, and striving to live a life that reflects the values that the Quran upholds.
And that includes the belief in the afterlife, right?
Yes, definitely. The Quran speaks about heaven, Jannah, and hell, Jahannam.
Okay. And those are like descriptions of what awaits us after death.
Right. And while these descriptions can be quite vivid, they're not meant to scare people, but rather to remind us that our actions have consequences.
So it's about living in a way that will lead you towards like a positive outcome in the afterlife.
Exactly. It's about seeking Allah's pleasure and earning a place in Jannah, paradise.
Wow. Okay. So the Quran offers guidance on everything from like the very foundations of belief
Yeah.
to these big existential questions about life and death.
It really does. It's a comprehensive guide.
It is. It's amazing to see how all of these teachings are connected and how they form this, like, holistic framework for living.
It's a beautiful tapestry of guidance.
That's a great way to put it. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, and I hope this has given you a better understanding of the core messages and ideas in the Quran.
Me too.
And as you continue to learn and explore on your own, remember what we talked about today: the importance of tawheed, the role of the prophets, the concept of taqwa, the lessons in those amazing stories, and the emphasis on seeking knowledge. And don't forget about jihad, the striving for righteousness in all aspects of your life. And maybe as you're reflecting on all this, ask yourself, what part of the Quran speaks to you the most? What resonates with you personally? And what would you like to learn more about?
That's a great question to ponder.
Keep that curiosity alive. Keep exploring. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you then.